What's up, Packers fans? Aaron Nagler here. I am joined by Maggie Loney, who is going to be joining me to talk some football, but now we've got a trade to talk about. So figured we'd go live. Maggie, how are you on this fine afternoon?
I'm good, and before anybody asks, I'm drinking coffee because it's 2 p.m. So
No one was going to ask. Well, everybody was going to ask. No, it's good that
everybody's gonna ask.
you got the coffee because we got a little jolt this afternoon with the Packers trading Josh Jackson after his abysmal performance Saturday night against the Texans. It looks like Brian Gutekunst has seen enough. Trading for another cornerback, Isaac Yiadom from the Giants, who was originally drafted by the Broncos. And like I mentioned, we were going to be doing a video at this time anyway. So I figured let's just go live because there's new information. And Josh Jackson, are you surprised that they pulled the trigger this early after only one preseason game? Let me start there.
I guess to me, this was the scenario that made the most sense because I don't think anybody thought he was going to latch onto the 53. He wasn't going to be a practice squad guy, so you may as well trade him for what you can get as soon as possible, especially if you want to see a guy like Isaac come in and take some reps in the preseason. But, they both were probably going to be cut by their respective teams anyway, so This makes the most sense for all parties.
Good question from Chris right off the bat. Thanks for the super chat, Chris. Any thoughts on special team ability for the new corner? I don't know how much he's played on teams prior to this stop here in Green Bay. I know he was a former third-round pick. I got to think he's had some run on teams at one or both of his stops, but off the top of my head, I don't know. What do you think, Maggie?
Paul Brettel actually posted that recently. He had 489 career special team snaps.
There you go.
So has played quite a bit. Leave it to Paul to just have all the numbers right away.
He's always his Twitter feed is magic like that. Well, there you go, and that makes a world of sense, especially when you consider how Jackson was literally inactive down the stretch last year because he didn't contribute on teams. Matt LaFleur said that point blank.
I will say, though, that when we were at training camp this past week and we were looking at Maurice Drayton, Jackson was getting a ton of looks, and he was one of the guys that was like coaching everybody else up on special teams. So if there was one way for him to latch onto the roster, it would have been special teams because he was one of the guys that seemed to rarely make mistakes in that area, at least in training camp. Yeah, but now it doesn't matter.
Exactly. But he knew, though, you got to think he knew that was his last dance, so to speak. Because that's the only way he was getting on this roster is if he contributed on special teams. And now he's going to have to try and do that here in New York. What do you think about the depth behind him? You just had an article come up at Cheesehead TV about the depth in the secondary. Where do you think this leaves them? I mean, obviously they drafted Stokes. He's the heir apparent, so to speak. He and Kevin King will battle it out, although I don't know how much of a battle it's actually going to be. But past those two guys, where does this leave the Packers at corner?
I mean, all I have to say is that if Isaac comes in and takes Kabianento's roster spot, I'm going to be livid because I love Kabianento so much. But no, I mean, I think it's fair to wonder, I guess, what the depth is. Somebody commented under my article and was like, yeah, we think every year that the special teams depth is going to be something special. And that's fair. I mean, I think the preseason makes guys that are on the roster bubble look better because of the caliber of talent they're going up against. But the Packers don't really know what they have outside of Kevin King, and they kind of have a realistic idea of who he is. Eric Stokes probably won't play a ton. Shamar John Charles, Shannon Sullivan looks like the guy to start at the star role. But yeah, I mean, outside of that depth, Kadar Holman didn't look like he was really doing much. Stanford Samuels didn't look like he was doing much. So I think if you bring in one more guy to compete for that back end spot of the roster, it doesn't hurt anything, at least from the cornerback perspective.
Yeah, and this is not a guaranteed spot either. There's no guarantee that he comes in and even makes the 53.
Right.
He's going to be battling just like everybody else. Danny asked, was Josh a Goody pick? I believe he wasn't he? He was a Gutekunst pick.
Yeah, he was a second
round pick. Yep. Second round pick. Yeah. So Josh is now a New York Giant. This might also help with the salary cap with $400,000 in savings. I mean, every little bit helps, right? As far as you think about where they are as next year, more like is the issue more than this year, but every little bit helps, even though they did get relief from Rodgers' contract.
I mean, if they're bringing back Clay Matthews, they're going to need every.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Clay's got some contract demands, and that $400K opens up at least maybe a roster or something. It's good. JJ gets a fresh start as well as the cornerback coming over from New York Giants. Nice one, Goot. That's the thing. Like, Gutekunst has shown he's not afraid to pull the trigger on these moves during camp. He sent I can't remember who it was. There was another corner he sent to the Colts a couple years ago during camp.
Lindsey Pipkins.
Pipkins, right. So, he's not afraid to kind of, maneuver around the back end of his roster. Player for player trades are becoming a little bit more regular in the NFL too. So I guess I was a bit surprised they did it so early, but it's nice to see, Josh get a fresh start. I know he was frustrated in Green Bay. I think that was very apparent on Saturday night. What was your overall takeaway from the secondary play on Saturday against the Texans and the week you were in Green Bay? Because you did just get back from a week at training camp.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, the safety room looks really good, and we haven't seen a ton of Will Redmond. He's been kind of on that non-football injury list for a while. I know he just came back.
Off of it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when we were there, he was only rehabbing. So between Vernon Scott, Henry Black, and Innis Gaines, I mean, there's a lot to like in those young guys. I think Innis Gaines has had probably the strongest camp, and then if you translate that into the preseason, Vernon Scott looked really good. So it does make me wonder if Will Redmond's spot is kind of up for grabs since he hasn't been practicing. But I know that he was kind of in that star role early in the mandatory OTAs with some of the vets resting.
Yeah, and it's funny because you heard Jerry Gray, I believe, was the one who said, you can't lose your job due to injury. Now Redmond's finally going to be back out there. It is going to be interesting to see if he challenges and or gets challenged because, I think he's a fine role player, but no one's confusing him for a very good football player anytime soon. You know what I mean? Like, he's a young guy and he definitely gives you some depth, but I mean, I would think it's going to be a battle here especially these two practices with the Jets and then Saturday in the preseason game. Got some super chats to get you. Uncultured Barbarian, always laying it down. What's up? This afternoon's tunes are Papa Was a Rolling Stone and Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City. So Motown for you. Thank you. And Pappy's. What's up, Uncultured? That's what I'm talking about. Stanley, thanks for the super chat. Josh Jackson reunited with Patrick Graham. Hey, that's an interesting connection. Hadn't thought about that, but that's true. That's true. And Walter, thank you for the super chat. Which position battle intrigues you guys the most? I'll let Maggie answer that since she's our special guest here on Extra Cheese this afternoon. Which position battle intrigues you the most, Maggie?
I mean, I don't want to cheat and say the secondary because we were just talking about that. So I think, honestly, to me right now, it's inside linebacker. I think a lot of us going into OTAs thought that maybe Oren Burks was in the bubble, and then he had one of the best performances in preseason. So, does that translate? What does that mean? Would the Packers consider keeping 5 inside linebackers because they need help on special teams? And Oren and Ty Summers
were the body type, right? The body type for special teams, definitely. Yeah, inside backer is interesting. It's weird to come off a game where they had 30 guys not suited up, right? Like, because there are so many pieces you want to see. Like, I've gotten so many questions about the inside backer spot because, they bring in a veteran and now we don't get to see him as fans. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Burks did have a good game. There's no doubt about that. Everyone knows the most intriguing is our punter battle. Daniel, the punting battle's over. Winslow's been released. Battle won. Well, that's not truly true because obviously you're always competing against the rest of the league. Sly, Ty Summers' ship is sinking. Probably. I don't know. It's an interesting case because they want him out there for teams, and he was running ahead of Kamal Martin at the beginning of camp. So I don't know. And I think he's played okay from what I saw at camp. I don't know, Maggie. What do you think about Ty Summers?
Ty is interesting too because if you look at the tail end of last season with guys like Chris Barnes and Kamal Martin dealing with injuries, Ty was getting looks ahead of Warren Burks. So when they need somebody to wear the mic, he's traditionally the guy that's done that. So I think, Maurice Drayton and a couple other guys have named Ty and Oren specifically as players that really make an impact on special teams. So, we saw special teams on Saturday and it still needs a ton of work. So I don't know. I mean, I think it seems so weird to keep 5 inside linebackers, but this also feels like a year that I could see them absolutely doing that.
No question about it. And I mean, we saw Ted, there was that year where he kept 5 tight ends or whatever. So, definitely not crazy as an idea. Let's see. What are the details of the Jackson trade? It's a straight up player for player trade, John. It's Josh Jackson for Isaac Yiadom, who was a corner that was drafted in the 3rd round by the Broncos and then was a Giant. And now has been traded from the Giants to the Packers. Thoughts on the wide receiver room? Juwan has been a name in camp and hasn't played yet. Yeah, I do wonder how much of that is Winfrey is hurt, quote unquote, and how much of that is the Packers trying to hide him.
Yeah, I It's hard. I mean, Devin Funchess, I think, earned his roster spot on Saturday. I was kind of surprised he was even out there. I mean, I know with a guy that's been hurt and didn't play since very early 2019, you want to give him some looks, but he made everybody just look silly when he was on offense.
Look like, it was a little bit man among boys, right?
It was. So, I mean, I feel like 7 is a lot, but I feel bad because there's a lot of guys who are pretty talented who would, I mean, like DeAndre Tompkins to me is absolutely a practice squad guy. I thought he looked really good, especially in camp. We've seen him do some special teams work, but it's just there's no room in the room this year for wide receivers. EQ's probably gone. I don't know. I like Juwan Winfrey. It's like you said, is he not practicing for a reason, or is it like a stashing kind of thing?
I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. Andrew. Oh wait, Bo has the super chat of the day. The Bears stink worse than an armpit that farted. Truer words that were never spoken. Andrew, thanks for the super chat. Why do we refuse to move on from JK? They refuse. It's not over yet. I keep telling people, you don't be surprised if we get down to the final cut to 53 and they make a trade for somebody or they pick somebody off of the waiver wire and cut JK. I'm not predicting that, but that's a possibility. That said, I thought, JK's kicked okay in camp and he looked okay on Saturday night.
I mean, they're not really doing too much like live coverage of anything on special teams, so it's kind of hard to assess like how great he really does look. But yeah, I mean, he's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I hear you. Michael, can King ever stay healthy? No. We all know this. This is not even a question. Winfrey is the new secret weapon. All right, but I don't think we want to like say he's a secret weapon because then he's not a secret anymore. And every time we give somebody that label, they seem to bust out. So let's not do that. Justin, thanks for the super chat. Josh Jackson will thrive in the right system. What do you think of that, Maggie? What do you think about the idea so many times after he was drafted? I mean, almost instantly. I know lots of fans and some other analysts around the internet instantly said, they got to convert him to safety. They got to convert him to safety. So I don't know if it's so much, maybe it is a system thing. Maybe it is working more zone stuff. I don't know. But do you think a change of scenery scheme, maybe a position switch is in the cards for Josh, or how do you feel about it?
So the player that I default back to, and I'm sorry if this is triggering to anybody, is Demarius Randall. And the Packers obviously took him at corner. He went to the Browns, played safety, had a decent season, but where is he in the league right now? Do you know what I mean? Like he kind of fizzled. So I think a change of scenery.
Seattle, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. And I think a change of scenery is good for Josh. I think that he will have opportunities, but I think people kind of, not that he wasn't a talented player in college, because he was, but I think his interception numbers jumped out at everybody as maybe an unrealistic expectation of who he could be. And we haven't necessarily seen it transition to the NFL level. So yeah, I mean, I think a change of scenery is good for anybody, but I don't know if that immediately is going to turn him into a Hall of Famer.
I agree. On culture, that's an apt question. How does Grossi keep getting Murphy interviews? Well, he knows Aaron Popke, so that's how he's worked it. And when are you going to beat him like a government mule in Madden again? It'll happen on Cultured. It'll happen. Patience, young Jedi. Jeezy baby, thanks for the super chat. Josh Jackson will thrive if he covers and tackles. I mean, you can't put it better than that. Somebody said, did they run this trade by Rodgers? I would love that. I would love it if they called him like, Aaron, well, we're trading Josh Jackson. Is that okay? I love this idea. Okay, here we go. Kodo, I hope I'm not destroying your name. Thoughts on the Packers keeping Henry, Vernon, and Innis at safety all look great against Houston. What do you think, Maggie?
Yeah, I mean, I think Will Redmond is the guy that's definitely got the hottest seat in the room. They asked Vernon Scott about it in his presser, and he's like, because he made the roster last season, and I think he's looked really good. Henry Black, we know, was elevated from the practice squad a number of times to come in. He had that play against the Texans. And Innis is like the kind of like the sleeper of the room that you can't really call a sleeper anymore, because I think his name is getting the most traction of anybody on Twitter. He's looked great. So I think with Will not practicing and just kind of working his way back in now after the NFI list, he's probably sweating it. I mean, those guys have all looked really good. So unless he comes out and just kind of blows things out of water or really, really contributes on special teams, yeah, there's absolutely a chance that he doesn't make the 53.
Totally agree. The two best quarterbacks in the NFC North are on the Packers roster, Rodgers and Love. You get no argument from me. Although I do like Justin Fields. I just hate that he went to the Bears. Maggie, thanks for doing the show, guys. Go Pack Go. Thank you, Sandro. Great to have Maggie on. What else we got? Drew Rosenhaus was on the sideline for pregame Saturday, sat right near us for game. Does he have lots of Packer clients? Not a ton, Matt. it's funny because he's been rarely involved with the Packers over the last decade or so. I know he has a few now, but not a ton. Why are you down on Funchess after his performance on Saturday? See, this is the thing that the internet does. Like, all I said was he's got to play teams. It just doesn't make any sense to keep this guy on the roster. If you've got the 5, okay, you're going to make him number 6, because we know what Devontae, Randall, Alan Lazard, MVS, Amari Rodgers. Those are 5 dudes that are going to be on this team. So to me, if you're going to keep a 6th or 7th wide receiver, and you're going to dress them as part of your game day 46, right, they got to be playing on special teams. How can they not? And we've seen Funchess playing on teams. All I'm saying is that if he's on the roster, he's got to be playing teams.
Well, and that's the thing. If you're keeping 6 wide receivers, I mean, you're not going to go into a game and not dress MVS, Rodgers, Cobb. Right. Like, dressing 7, where do you leave somebody off?
Right. I'm not down on him. I think he had a really good performance, like we were just talking about. I think he looked like a man among boys. You can tell this is a bona fide NFL player playing with a lot of young guys. And you could see it. There was no question about it. And obviously they wanted him out there because, as Maggie said, he's missed a lot of time, want to get his wheels back, etc. I get all that. And he did look good.
He did.
But he's got to contribute on teams. And I'm not saying he won't. I'm just saying that's his ticket to the roster. Thoughts on the last defensive end spot? Chauncey looked good, in my opinion. I agree, Hakoto. What do you think, Maggie?
Yeah, I think Chauncey looks good. I think it's really hard to tell, and the injuries don't help, but right. Randy Ramsey kind of was a really nice fit for that. And then it sounds like he's out for the year now. Tipa, it sounds like if he gained 10 pounds would be a shoe-in.
He could get pushed around in the run.
He is.
He's a fun pass rusher, but he's just too light.
Totally. And he kind of moves similarly to Garvin, right? They're both like lean, right, skinny. Yep. So and Garvin is, I think, making the roster. So I don't know if you can commit.
Yeah, he had a couple nice rushes both Saturday night and then in practice last week, both in the Hudson Center, and then when they put the pads on the next day, he got around Kelly a few times and then got around Turner once. I mean, the guy's got some moves. I'm interested to see what happens there. Do you think Slayton can get in the starting lineup? What do you think, Maggie?
I think so. Maybe it's just because I like the big guys in the middle, but yeah, I mean, there were some looks both in camp and in the preseason where he just manhandles people, and it's just not fair. And that's exactly what you need, like a Dean Lowry specifically. If you can get guys, especially imagine freeing up Kenny Clark. If TJ Slayton can eat up just a little bit,
the thing. Right.
What did Dean have that one sack where he was just entirely untouched?
Oh, like completely unblocked. Yeah.
There you go.
Like, okay. Sounds good to me.
TJ can eat those up and Lowry can just have straight shots at the quarterback.
Yeah. And it's funny you say, like, is Slayton going to start? It really depends on what the packages they come out in, right? I mean, if the opponent comes out in a base or a power formation, you got to think, there's a chance he's out there. But if they come out and spread it out, they're not putting him out there like in some pass rushing package. They'll probably have 2 guys down. Okay, we'll take one more. We got Caleb with a super chat. With Rodgers and his goofy demands, let's just bring back everyone from 2011. What do you think, Maggie?
I don't know about everybody.
Well, there's some people we're going to leave on the sideline. Like we're going to let a few players just stay on the couch. But I agree. All right, everybody. I can't thank you guys enough. And Maggie, I can't thank you enough for hopping on short notice. Talking some Josh Jackson trade, talking some Packers. We'll definitely have to do this again. Everybody, please hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. We'll be back at some point. I got to do another video with Maggie at some point. We're going to talk some football where we can delve into some other topics. But Maggie, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.